Economic Times this week suggests that the Election Commission is looking at ways to make it mandatory to link voter cards with the Aadhaar ID. A voluntary program of linking these two government-issued identifications was carried out by the Election Commission in 2015, but was then suspended pending the Supreme Court judgment on Aadhaar. Now that the judgment is out, attempts to link the two have begun again. Now, the Election Commission wants to link the two so as to clean up electoral rolls and will be writing to the Law Commission, says this report. The story raises some serious questions. Would linking the Aadhaar with voter cards actually end up removing duplications in voter lists, as is being claimed? Or would there be a threat to the privacy of voters? Is there also a danger of a large number of names being struck off electoral rolls, like we saw in the Telangana Assembly elections recently? To speak more on this, I'm joined now by Pranesh Prakash, a Policy Director at the Center for Internet and Society. Reetika Khera, Associate Professor at Tamanna Inamdar, is joining us as well. And I'm also speaking today with S.K. Mendiratta, the former legal counsel of the Election Commission and really an EC veteran. Welcome to all of you, and thanks for speaking with us today. Pranesh, I'll start with you and your thoughts of, if this goes through, how serious would it be? Actually, first, let's look at whether this can go through as well in light of the Aadhaar judgment, because the Aadhaar judgment was okay with the government using the Aadhaar identity in certain aspects, stopped short at private operators using the Aadhaar. Where would this proposal lie?
This, to me, seems clear that this is not a government subsidy of any kind, and so for me, it's questionable whether this would actually fall within the bounds that the Supreme Court has set for usage of Aadhaar. And and furthermore, if you look at the past usage of the Aadhaar number by the election commissions in India, then those have also been in violation of the law if they happened after 2016, from when the Aadhaar Act came into force. In those cases, they got the data from the National Population Register, from the NPR exercise, which had also collected the Aadhaar number and then had gotten merged with UIDAI's database. And that itself would be a violation of the law that UIDAI had laid down in its regulations. And so for me, this entire exercise seems to be of questionable validity, legally speaking.
Let me bring in Mr. Mendiratta here, because we know that in 2015 there was a program that the Election Commission ran, which was the National Electoral Roll Purification and Authentication Program. It aimed at removing any duplications in the electoral roll, etc. Was this strictly voluntary, as was claimed, Mr. Mendiratta?
No, actually, we wanted that to be done on the voluntary basis at that time, because there was a Supreme Court judgment also. It says that voluntary use of these numbers may be permitted in some circumstances. So we also felt perhaps we were entitled to use that, but then some doubts arose in our mind, and then we, on our own, stopped that exercise midway. Now that the law has been upheld, and then we are not a private organization. See, it's a constitutional body, and then if some information is available with the government, we can definitely make use of that, because the purity of the election process depends on the purity of the electoral rolls. So if by the use of these Aadhaar numbers, we can weed out all those duplicate numbers, and then we can go for the purity of the electoral roll, then I don't think there is any legal bar to the use of these numbers with in our electoral roll data. So I don't think that any privacy issue is involved in this one, because we are not going to make that public. Only we are asking for the Aadhaar number, that's all. And then UID may just check up their records and say, yes, this man, a man by this name exists in their data, and then we may, and weeding out the duplicate numbers, because people, when they move from one place to another,
yes,
they don't, in many cases, they don't tell us from where they have come. So that will definitely help us.
Do you strictly need the Aadhaar linkage for this? Then is the next logical question. Let me get Reetika Khera in on this. And Reetika Khera is, very strong anti-Aadhaar advocate as well. That's how I would describe you, Reetika, and I think rightly so. What are your concerns with this proposal?
Can I say that I have dissent on Aadhaar rather than anti this or that? I think this is a very, very serious matter. And I think the move is quite likely to be quite a vicious, going to have very bad outcomes as far as voting is concerned. What we've seen in Telangana is that what were being passed off as duplicates or dead people, etc., turned out to be very prominent citizens as well, including a senior IPS officer, Jwala Gutta, a badminton player, and many, many others on Twitter were tweeting about why their names had been struck off. So the problem is not with cleaning up the electoral rolls. There's no problem in doing that. In fact, that would be a very welcome move. The problem is with the tool that is being used and the procedure by which it is being done. And my problem here is not only with the fact that they were using Aadhaar numbers to link this, any technological tool. In fact, in Telangana, the deletions haven't been only because of Aadhaar. There were other tools that they were, technological tools that they were using in a non-transparent manner, and violating procedures. You know, the procedures require that if a name is being struck off, that person has to be sent notice and given an opportunity to clarify, etc. None of this seems to have happened. Many people have been approaching the Election Commission, not directly in Delhi, but the state offices, complaining about the deletion of their names since 2015 after that exercise was carried out. So, you know, internationally, we have learned now that this is there are serious problems with the use of these algorithmic approaches in various spheres, not just in the electoral. No,
so there are two clear points. One point is that as per the Aadhaar judgment by the Supreme Court, can legally the voter ID and the Aadhaar number be linked? Does it fall under the purview? And the second point is the outcome. Mr. Mendiratta, I think you should comment on what we saw in Telangana, which was the outcome of an attempt to clean up or purify the electoral roll. There are reports that over 20 lakh people's names were struck off the electoral rolls.
See, actually, honestly, I tell you, I am not aware about this huge number of deletions, because we have been just hearing on your telephone, on your TVs, but I am not sure whether the deletion on such a large scale took place because of the Aadhaar. That I don't know, because we delete as per the procedure. We give a notice to everyone whose name is proposed to be deleted from the electoral roll. And I don't know if somebody has played mischief at the lower levels, then naturally the Election Commission will take care of. But I am sure such a huge number of voters, as is being alleged, 70 lakh, somebody is saying 22 lakh, at least I don't believe that one.
All right, so the Election Commission issued a formal press release after the entire Telangana Assembly elections and said that voters should have come back and checked. They said that they followed due process, but the fact is that a large number of voters, and because some of them were prominent citizens, that's why it came to the fore, were not able to cast their vote. Pranesh, the counter argument would be that it is the voters' duty to ensure that their names are on the electoral rolls, and the EC has to do something to avoid duplication and any kind of malified intent as well.
Absolutely, and indeed my name was struck off the electoral rolls despite having been on it way back in 2011 or so. And I was not sent any notice. So as Professor Khera rightly pointed out, the problem isn't with duplicates entries in electoral rolls being struck off. That must be done. The question is whether due process is being followed. And the second question is whether Aadhaar can be used. And again, I must remind Mr. Mendiratta that under the regulations, forget about the Supreme Court judgment on which people could possibly take different, views. And my view on this is quite clear. But under the regulations laid down by UIDAI, you cannot do authentication of Aadhaar numbers, that is to say whether this person is actually the same, without that person's consent. That is not allowed. Second, you're not allowed to use Aadhaar numbers or store Aadhaar numbers without a person's consent. So given that the Election Commission seems to have done that, under a project in 2015, given that the documentation, the letters that have been exchanged between UIDAI, the Election Commission, the Home Ministry, etc., have been published online by various, press outlets, and those do not take the consent of the people whose Aadhaar numbers are being used. This is a problem. This is a legal problem. I must underscore that. So if this kind of linkage has to be done without the consent of the people involved, then the law must be amended. Without the law being amended, this would be unlawful. And secondly, as a person whose name is no longer on the electoral rolls and who had to reapply this year, I must say that there is a due process problem that I personally have faced as well. I was not given any notice as is required under the law.
So the report does say that the Election Commission will move to amend the PRA, the People's Representation Act of 1951, and only then, of course, can you make it mandatory. And we're a long way from that happening. It will go to Parliament, etc. It's a recommendation which will be made now as per a report. But even so, we're taking this seriously because an attempt has been made in the past, and it's a very crucial issue. Mr. Mendiratta, what's your response to some of the concerns that Reetika and Pranesh have raised? Also, the biggest concern of due process not being followed, people being struck off in this kind of an exercise, and the lack of privacy.
No, actually, we have such a vast electoral machinery that sometimes our instructions don't percolate down to the last man. And then because of their perhaps mistakes or maybe even mischief also, Election Commission unnecessarily gets a bad name. That is why, see, we also stopped this process because we had issued some instructions that don't insist for the production of the number or the card. But some people did ask for that one. So somebody even moved the Supreme Court saying that it's a contempt of the court order. So we had stopped that one because the machinery down at the lowest level, they may not be knowing the nuances or the technicalities. So that was the reason for stopping that exercise.
I understand, but at the end of the day, saying that the implementation may have been shoddy doesn't really condone the Election Commission of India, because you have to ensure that everyone's basic right is protected. Reetika just wanted to come in with a point. Yes, Reetika.
Yeah, actually, I just want to make a couple of points. One is related to Aadhaar, and this is a very good example of function creep, which is, this use of something beyond what it was intended. So think of it like a cancer. Aadhaar was supposedly intended only for welfare benefits. Today, they're saying they want to use it for linking. Tomorrow, they'll say that we want to do biometric authentication at the time of voting. Now, we know that both these problems, the linking has caused a lot lot of exclusion and denial in other spheres, and so has biometric authentication. So that's one set of issues that's related to Aadhaar, apart from the legal issues that are involved. The second issue really, which is I think even more important, is the question of disenfranchisement that this will lead to. You know, in America, there have been campaigns against voter registrations. The American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, has been fighting these battles to prevent this, because they know that when that kind of requirement comes in, the burden falls on the most dispossessed people. They are the first ones to be excluded. They are the ones who will not be able to get back onto the voter rolls and so on. So that's one set of disenfranchisement kind of issues. The second is the Cambridge Analytica Facebook kind of scandal, right? And the UK Information Commissioner has raised the alarm bells regarding the use of these data. And, you know, even though the government of India, UIDAI, may say that we will not do this or that and abuse it, we know that hacking is a problem that we have to live with in this day and age, right? So we shouldn't increase and multiply the vulnerabilities in these systems. You know, voting is such a fundamental right. It's not, if you go and you want to vote and you're denied your vote, it's not like, you know, you can't go and attend a concert because you didn't have the right ID. This is really the most fundamental right that the poor citizens and even ordinary citizens like us, or eminent citizens, whoever it is, have in this country.
Pranesh, there is also the question of concern of manipulation. Do you think that is a valid concern?
Let me just say that the Cambridge Analytica story has, in my opinion, been blown out of proportion. The kind of manipulation that the media have portrayed around that hasn't actually been shown to exist. Cambridge Analytica, just as an example, was a consultant both for Trump as well as for people who lost, okay, such as Ted Cruz. So it wasn't as though their strategy always worked, and in my opinion, just Aadhaar linkage isn't manipulation isn't the main problem there. The main problem, as Reetika pointed out, is disenfranchisement. And again, while it is incumbent upon citizens to look up the electoral rolls, it is not very convenient to do so. Indeed, once they have enrolled themselves, most people that you talk to believe that their duty is over. Once they have got their election card, their voter ID card, their EPIC, they believe that their enrollment process is over. Yeah. They don't realize that without any due process, they may just be struck off the rolls, and they must be vigilant. That isn't something that that the ordinary citizen realizes. So given that, anything that furthers this kind of disenfranchisement, I believe, is greatly problematic. And I believe that the Supreme Court's verdict will, in any case, come between, the law being amended to make this a reality. Right. So I'm not sure.
We'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see if the Election Commission does actually move forward on this, and whether that will to make people link their Aadhaar with their voter IDs exists and persists even further. But it is definitely something which could be fraught with several risks. Thank you to all of you for joining us on this discussion today.